Okay, it is 6:30. We did call the meeting to order earlier because the board was in a committee of the whole, so now we are reconvening for our regular meeting. So I will move on to B, consent calendar. So in the consent calendar, we have the regular minutes from the previous meeting as well as treasurer's report. And so there are no donations, so I will accept a motion to approve the consent calendar. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I need to abstain from the September 7th special board.
Okay, great, thank you. So we will note that abstention, and we have a 7-0 vote to approve the consent calendar. So now B, moving into information items. First item on that agenda for information items is public comment. Katie, do we have anyone registered for public comment? Is there anyone here for public comment? One more time, is there anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to OEA report. And Laura is here this evening, so I'm going to have her called up to the table, and she will give a short comment.
I can do it. I got it. Good evening. Just a short report to share with you all this evening. We wanted to share that we had several educators who went out to clean up as part of the highway cleanup team. We've adopted a highway, oh my gosh, now I can't tell you which one. But we have a highway section that we clean up, so we did our highway cleanup this past week, and we continue to look for ways to just be active in and support the community. We're also looking at the end of Q1, and we know teachers are wrapping up assessing work, posting report card grades, and just that takes such a huge amount of time to report on student progress, and that much of that is done after hours, but it's one of our key communications with families, and we take that responsibility seriously, just that it's a long process. But we continue to be grateful for the school board, who continues to be forward-thinking partners in our work to create the best experience for our learners. So thank you to all of you. That's all.
All right, thank you, Laura. All right, moving on to 3, student report. I'm happy to report that we do have 2 students here this evening. So Charlotte and Olivia, I'm going to turn it over to you. So if you could introduce yourselves and then give your report.
I'm Olivia.
And I'm Charlotte.
And so we have a presentation. So the start of the 2023-2024 school year has gone pretty good, with homecoming just happening and then fall sports coming to an end. Oregon's been pretty busy.
To start off, homecoming week was super fun. The students went all out with the spirit this year. We had the typical spirit days with Barbie and Ken Wednesday and Adam Sandler Thursday being added to the mix. The underclassmen also had many fun spirit days, such as Middle School Monday, Twin Tuesday, Student Teacher Swap Wednesday, and Barbecue and Soccer Parent Thursday.
So unfortunately the parade was canceled due to the weather, but the spirit was still shown at the pep rally with fun games such as volleyball, dodgeball, Hungry Hippos, the plunger race, and all the class competitions. Everyone was being loud and proud. Per the usual, the seniors won the class competitions. And then even though the Panther football team didn't have the best record this year, they really pulled through and gave it their all at the homecoming game, winning against Sun Prairie by 2. And then on Saturday, everyone looked great for the dance, and then we celebrated the homecoming win with great music and friends and peers all around us.
All of the fall sports have done very well this year. The seasons are coming to a close. Many sports have already finished or have begun to start their postseason. We wish all of our Panther athletes good luck at the end of their season, and we are thankful for all of our seniors as they completed their final fall sports season. We also wish the best to our underclassmen as they continue on with their athletic careers. Our winter sports are about to kick off, and we wish them all the best of luck.
And then lastly, along with our year-long exchange students, we've recently been joined by a bunch of German students. All of OHS has been so welcoming to exchange students, and the students have been really eager to see what it's like to be in the US, Wisconsin, and OHS. They have quickly become a part of OHS and become a Panther themselves.
And then to finish off, the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, which is what we're coming from today, is expanding this year due to the fact that we're a very old club and we have a lot of upperclassmen. So we're excited to be expanding our club for them.
And then just thanks for listening to us and Roll Panthers.
Yeah.
Great, thank you guys. We're happy to have you here. All right, moving on to C, action items. Our first action item tonight is approval of the 2023-2024 budget, and then we'll move right into the 2023-2024 tax levy. As people may be aware, we talked about all of those at the annual meeting, and then this is the final meeting where the school board actually does approve those items. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wyland.
Thank you. So as Board President Flanagan said, we've been talking about this subject for some time now, and so I'm going to not spend as much time on it and probably go fairly quick tonight. You also have a fairly detailed report in your board packet with also some graphs and those types of things. We took a couple of those graphs and we put it into here. So just some main themes that I wanted to share with the board and the community that is important. You can see from this slide, our revenue limit is basically an equation of equalization aid, that's state aid that we get, minus equalization aid equals our property taxes, so that's how that's calculated. And you can see from here that as our district has grown from a property wealth basis, property taxes are making up a larger component of that. So although property taxes go up, we don't always have spending authority. The revenue limit kind of controls all unless we go to referendum, which is what we did last year, and that has given us some spending authority. But this is a graph that kind of shows that as we grow in assessed values, that more of the funding comes from the local property pays than does the state. So here's what I affectionately always call my favorite page. We tried not to have it so long, but we got it on the page barely. You can see from the fund balances, we do anticipate reducing fund balance. In the end, we will not reduce it by the full $3.93 million for the education fund. You see the revenues on the left hand, the fund balances, starting fund balances on the left hand side. The second right orange column is the ending fund balance. We do, basically that $3.9 million is assigned from prior years for specific projects, all of which won't happen this fiscal year, but a good portion of them will. So that fund balance will decrease, probably not by as much as what we're anticipating here. The other funds underneath that, are not showing too much of a change from revenues to expenses, basically zero type of impacts until we get to debt service. Debt service, we look to be just slightly less than what we are projected to bring in this year. Not a big deal, that's just a timing issue. Long-term capital projects, we don't have a bunch of money in there yet, but anticipate funding that in the future. And then our referendum bond fund, that's the funds that we use to actually build Forest Edge Elementary School. And we still have some money in there related to safety improvements in our district. So that we anticipate spending the remaining portion of that. A large expenditure this year that we did, that you may know at Forest Edge that we kind of completed, or that we did complete, was putting an artificial grass in the playground area because we just couldn't get grass to grow. It's such a small area for our students to play on that we had to put a different surface there, and that's been holding up really well and well received. So that was about a $150,000 purchase that we just paid for actually in October. Lastly, food service, you do see, and we just actually were talking about this, we're going to have to do something different with food service. The food costs have been outstripping our revenue streams for that, as well as some labor components too. So we are actively pursuing trying to identify ways that we can get that food service kind of more balanced than it is here. And then our trust funds show an increase. We hopefully will be close to fully funding our OPEB fund. That's been a 20-year project for our school district, and we are very, very close to being able to do that. That will help with other costs in our district. And the community education fund, by state law, has to budget to a zero amount for the end of the year. So the balance that we started this year with is budgeted as an expense to get to zero for the next year. So just a couple more charts to kind of talk about things. Again, as I said before, property taxes are starting to take a larger component of our revenue stream as equalization is backed off because we are becoming a more wealthy district from an equalization versus student perspective. The other revenues that you see here, this is just Fund 10, are pretty close to what they have been in the past. Expenditures, because the referendum was slated for mostly staffing, you can see that salaries are increasing a little bit more than what they were last year. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the reverse. Because salaries were kind of caught up last year, they increased at a little bit more of a clip than they were this year. But you can kind of see how that works through the rest of Fund 10. One of the things that we talked a little bit about this year was trying to address kind of our debt levy. What we have anticipated in this budget is using about $1 million to take care of some of our debt. And so this is our current debt schedule. You will notice that it's almost identical, within a few $1,000s for the next 20 years, not quite 20 years, 16 years or so. And so when we get to a point where we can call these bonds, which is next March 2025 actually, we would be able to take and pick where we want to take that $1 million plus the additional money that is accumulated in their debt service fund over the last couple years, and basically be able to call those bonds. So this was just a nice way to show what the liability is out there, but also be able to kind of start thinking about where we want to call those bonds for the future. So here's just a real easy graphical presentation of what our tax levy has been doing over the last several years. And again, part of that is caused by our equalization aid, or assessed values increasing such this year especially, that impacts the amount of aid that we get, and so we have to rely more on property taxes. And then here's kind of showing that. This is the first page that shows our equalization aid, our equalized values increasing. You will see that they're increasing significantly. If you put a percentage on that $4.2 billion number compared to 3.5 last year, you would see that that's almost a 20% increase in assessed value, and that's what's kind of driving the reduction in state aid. You'll see also, though, in this year that our rate is going to drop fairly significantly, approximately 6%, from 10.06 to 9.46, which will help kind of the amount of taxes that people are going to be paying. I guess one of the main things I want to leave with our viewers this evening is that our anticipation in the referendum last year was that we would have a significant increase in our property taxes this year. We do not anticipate seeing that large of an increase. We anticipate seeing a very minor increase from our property tax perspective, as long as people didn't improve their homes or add on additions or something like that. For the most part, it will be a very small, couple percent increase is kind of what we would anticipate people seeing, based on the rate being reduced, as well as something called a levy credit, which is being provided by the state to our municipalities. You don't see this in our rate, but overall, the entire state increased the levy credit by about $250 million. So over $250 million was put into that, and our taxpayers will see the benefit of that in their tax bills this year, instead of the increase that we had anticipated during the referendum. So that was a real quick overview. Any questions that anyone has?
So again, the board has had multiple meetings about this, including one this last week as a board work session. But what I'm going to do is go around the room and see if anybody has questions or anybody wants to make any comments or statements about where we're headed with this budget. So I'll open the floor. Go ahead, Heather.
Thanks, Andy. We have talked about this a lot, and I still continue to learn nuances every time. So thank you for all the information and time and effort that you put into this. I just have 3 comments, actually. One, I always have to start with gratitude about the referendum, because again, every time we talk about the budget, we would be in such a different place if the community hadn't supported what administration and Andy and the board put forward. So I'm super just grateful that we're talking about nuances as opposed to what would happen if the referendum hadn't passed. And then 2, I'm just very proud that the district, Andy, and again, the board were taking a long view with the debt management. I think that's really smart, and it continues to play with how we've, approached things with health insurance and debt management prior to this, so I'm really glad about that. So there's my two positives. And the one that just grates at me every single time that I will just say this, and I won't stop saying it, is that the special education fund requires a transfer of $6.6 million from the general fund because the state of Wisconsin funding for students for special needs is one of the lowest in the United States and woefully inadequate. So I have to keep saying that out loud because that's such a different picture if $6.6 million wasn't being taken from our general fund.
All right, thank you, Heather. Any further comments or discussion? Go ahead, Mary.
So just a point of clarification, will all Oregon School District residents see the same percent change for the OSD tax levy specifically?
No, unfortunately, because we have 10 different municipalities in our school district, there are different assessment practices. There are different things going on within each community. So no, I can't say that. But we've done some estimating based on what we think is going to happen. And like I said, it kind of feel like it should be a couple percent increase. Actually, some of our municipalities will probably see a couple percent decrease in their school taxes, just the way it worked out. One of the big things that is happening this year is significant growth in the assessed value of Fitchburg, city of Fitchburg. So that's the one I'm a little bit more worried about than the others, just because I don't have great eyes onto what's going on in the city of Fitchburg because we're just a third of them. Madison School District as well as Verona School District share them with us. So that's the one that I'm a little bit uncomfortable with, but everybody else, a couple percent increase is what I was anticipating. Again, unless your house is reassessed because somebody put on a garage or something like that, or something specifically was going on in your neighborhood that we wouldn't be able to control.
Okay.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Okay, I'm working now. I know we've had conversations about this, but could you briefly talk a little bit to the impact, looking at equalized values over the last couple of years, that 2021 it went up 10%, 2022 went up 15%, 2023 went up almost 20%, and that being significantly more than we had planned at 15%.
Correct.
The impact that we talked about this in other meetings, but the impact that large of an increase
Yep.
could potentially have on
Yep.
the aid coming from the state going forward, and what the impact that could have on potential property taxes for residents.
Sure. So the aid, as I was kind of a theme of the slides here, as a district in Wisconsin becomes more wealthy per student, and so there's two components there, right? The assessed values as far as the number of students. We've been fairly flat as far as our student growth, but our assessed values is going up significantly. So we are becoming more wealthy in the eyes of the state, and the state equalization aid is an equalizer amongst school districts. So the concept is then that we have more property to tax, and so we need to tax those property basically in order to fund our district more so than somebody that didn't have as much equalized value. So this large increase that we experienced this year really helps with our property tax bill this year. But next year, that's when the equalization formula looks back at this year's EAV, and then it will probably, our projection at this point in time, and this is based on the spending of 421 school districts in the state of Wisconsin, that's not done yet, won't be done until July. Our quickest estimate at this point in time is that we would lose about another $1 million in state aid this next year. So the idea, one of the things that we're doing with this debt service thing is to try to help blend that impact for this next year by also reducing the amount of debt. So that's the intent for what we're doing. So our hope is that the taxpayers will not feel that $1 million reduction this next year because we're kind of using this year to reduce some debt in order to do that.
All right, go ahead, Anna.
So I want to piggyback a little bit on that because I do see in here, we had already talked about a $300,000 debt defeasance levy, and now we're talking an additional $700,000. So that's the $1 million we're talking about.
Correct.
And if I understand correctly from what I'm seeing, we're adding a second year of our referendum. So is that 3.5 million approximately?
3 million.
3 million?
Yep.
So we've got the 3 million plus the 1 million for debt defeasement. And yet, because we've seen that growth in assessed value, we're still seeing an even lower mill rate than what we had last year.
Correct.
So essentially, we're able to take both of those things on with the levy and still not see the same impact on taxes and offer some stability for a gap that we see next year to allow that to sort of level off, so we're not seeing highs and lows in that property tax. It's building that in and also allowing us to have some savings and interest on some early debt payment. Is that
That is correct.
how I'm understanding all of that? Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you.
You bet.
She's going to look out, Andy. She might be coming
Yeah,
for your
yeah.
job. All right, any other further questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the 2023-2024 budget. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further comments, Dr. Bergstrom, Andy? Okay. Katie, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Garrison? Yes. Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Ms. Bijak? Yes. Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Ms. Wright? Yes. Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion
Sorry.
carries 7-0. Okay, moving on to, which is related, the approval of the 2023-2024 tax levy. So I'll turn it back over to Mr. Wyland.
Yeah, basically, this is just another way to look at the numbers. You'll see the same 946 mill rate on below. You do see the increase in the total property levy at the 12.79, and then the different components of that. The general fund being the majority of it, debt service actually being a little bit lower than last year, but as was mentioned, a little bit higher than our preliminary budget. Again, taking advantage of kind of the assessed values that are happening this year and going from there. And then our community levy being the exact same that we had projected before.
All right, any questions for Andy or discussion? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the approval of the 2023 tax levy. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Katie, could you please call the roll?
Dr. Lakuta?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Ms. Bijak?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison? Yes. Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. We have a budget and a tax levy. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to action item number 3, which is the Professional Sustainability Task Force Charter. I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Bergstrom.
Thank you. And I appreciate the fact that the referendum and gratitude are brought up frequently, because we certainly have a lot of it. We knew that we wanted to be able to continue to retain and attract the highest quality educators, and the referendum was a big step forward in allowing us to do that. But we also, at the time that we were talking to the community about the referendum, we acknowledged the fact that it's not just salary and benefits that keep people in a position in a school district or in their school, that there's a lot more to it than that. And so last year, we began a process to collect some of our own qualitative data. I think another way to talk about it is street data, related to what people felt about their position and their culture and why they stayed in the positions that they currently have. And whether it was through the stay interviews, which there were approximately 37 or 38 stay interviews, there were also interviews of people in year 3 of their employment, and we had the results of the school perceptions survey for staff. So we took all 3 of those data components and we took a look at themes. And one of the things we saw was that people stay in education and they stay in the OSD, number one, because they have a passion for education and love working with students, right? That's the biggest thing. But they also enjoy the relationship they have with their colleagues, and they find the leadership and the culture to be overall supportive. But what are the challenges? And this was very clear in every aspect, whether it was the survey or the stay interview or the year 3 interview. The challenges were about work-life balance with the increasing demands in education. And certainly student behaviors played a role in that, but that also plays a role in the balance. Because if you're spending a lot of time helping your students become regulated so that they can have the behaviors that allow them to learn, you're certainly not doing other things that help the classroom to be an enriching place, which means you're probably doing those things at night, which means you're probably suffering from an imbalance of what we all try to achieve related to work-life balance. So one of the biggest pieces to come out of that was the fact that we really wanted to be a leader in this area. We don't want to just cross our fingers and hope that our great people continue to stay or hope that competitive pay is enough. We want to be leaders in creating some measure of sustainability in what I believe is one of the greatest professions there is, and that is education. So due to this, knowing that this is what the board would like, in addition to certainly what we strive for as far as an administrative team, we are proposing that the board authorize a task force charter that would help us gather people together to talk about the existing data related to professional sustainability and to identify key strategies the district can take to increase sustainability of the profession while still, and this is the most big piece, while still offering the highest quality learning environment for our students. It would never be about lowering the quality of service. It's just how do we create some measure of sustainability with an increasing amount of demands. And then this task force would present a summary report to the board in the spring that identifies their findings and prioritizes some recommendations. And the task force would be comprised by Gina Jonan would be one of our leaders of the task force, and a board member appointed by the board president. And then we'd have educators and parents and guardians and community members, OEA members, and administrators as a part of this committee, which will be chosen through an application process.
All right, before I take questions, just so people know that maybe don't have a history, the board has done this in the past, that we've looked at key issues and we've presented a recommendation to the board in terms of a task force that's been co-chaired by a district administrator as well as a board member. We've done that for boundary, we've done that for school start times, we've done that for our youth sports and athletics task force. So that's really how we've done that in this community in terms of something that's that important that we feel like we want to have external input and new ideas brought to the table, and then those recommendations come back to the board for a look at, and knowing that that will impact some of the things that we do. So that's where we're at with this as well. So I'll open the floor up if there's any questions or discussion for Dr. Bergstrom or Ms. Jonan about this task force. Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Oh, go ahead, Caleb.
Yes, I can, sorry. I just wanted to say I think it's a great idea because I think it's a huge need. I'm in higher education myself, and one of the things we've also experienced is an increasing demand on our workload of just lots of extra additions to our workload. And one of the things I tell my colleagues is that there are many, many things out of our control. One of the things that we still have a little bit of control over is how we use our time. And I think it's an important thing to look at how educators use their time and what they're doing with that time and how much of that time is being taken up by stuff outside of the classroom. This might be getting ahead of things a little bit, but in looking at the breakdown of the task force, the composition, do we have any idea at this point, like the preliminary size of the task force and then the breakdown of the membership in terms of within that size, or is that something to still be decided?
We're very dedicated to making it manageable. So it would probably be around 20 and a breakdown of pretty even members of the different groups that we have here.
Could I ask a follow-up? So with the educators, it says that it'll be comprised of educators. Are those educators, are they teachers from the district? Or are we talking about educators in the broader sense? And I guess that also then speaks to the second thing is that would they, because you have representatives of the OEA there as well. So are we talking about two groups of educators from the district?
Well, it's really the same group. It's just that not all of our educators are members of the OEA, so we like to have, a nice group of educators. A nice group, excuse me. They're all nice, okay? A nicely sized group of educators representing, various perspectives. And I also think that we would be interested in people who are educators in other settings as members of the group, as far as family and community members. I think we're very interested in the perspectives that people bring from other places and other roles, particularly if they have a role in HR. I think that's very helpful too.
All right, any other questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that that the board create a professional sustainability task force.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, Katie, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Bijak?
Yeah.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Dr. Lakuta?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. In anticipation of that vote, I've asked Anna to serve as the board representative of that task force with Gina Jonan, and she has accepted that. So thank you, Anna. All right, moving on to our action item 4 is acceptance of the Altria settlement. So I will turn that over to Dr. Bergstrom for some background.
Thank you. I think that because this is a settlement from the Altria company, which is, what would we say? It's a part of the Jewel family. Because it's a legal settlement, I think I'm going to pass this ball to Ms. Jonan, and she'll talk to you a little bit about it.
Thank you. So we are looking tonight for the board to approve the district entering into this settlement agreement. So as background, there was large litigation against Jewel regarding e-cigarette litigation, specifically the impact on schools with the increased vaping from students. And so it's a nationwide settlement. So the parties did settle with Jewel. Previously, Altria is part of that same lawsuit, but a different defendant. And so now they have reached a potential settlement with Altria that the class action parties, We Are One, would need to approve. So if it was approved, Oregon would receive $20,466 from Altria. We had previously settled with Jewel for $67,975.81. It does take a while to get those payments because the court has to approve all of the payments and then the money has to actually be processed and paid. So in checking with Lori Lubinsky, who is our outside counsel on the matter, she reported that the court said we would probably receive the Jewel payment in early December. So I'm guessing it would be a few more months until we receive the Altria payment, should the board approve that tonight. I definitely recommend the board approve it. If we do not, we retain our right to sue Altria independently. But as you can imagine, that would be a very costly endeavor with no chance of a similar settlement. So it's my recommendation that we do approve this settlement agreement tonight. In terms of what the monies will be spent on, that is something that we are working on internally and reviewing research on that, and hope to come back to the board with a proposal yet this year.
All right, any questions or discussion or questions for Gina before we move into a motion and discussion? Go ahead, Heather.
I just have one question. I'm supportive of your recommendation and understand that we're exploring use of the funds. Are there parameters from the settlement around what they have to be used for?
No, there are not any restrictions on those funds.
All right, any other clarifying questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion if someone would like to make that.
I'd make the motion to approve the acceptance of the Altria state settlement as printed in the board packet.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, Katie, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Ms. Bijak?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Dr. Lakuta?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. That takes us to the end of action items. We'll move on to D, discussion items. We are moving into committee of the whole, which the board met before that, but I think we did have one. Did we have one policy, or did we have a board meeting after that one policy? I can't remember. We did have a policy? Okay, Heather, I'll turn it over to you for an update on policy.
I'm going to take that and turn it over to Ms. Jonan.
So the policy committee has been working on the calendar as well as the virtual therapy policy. We're looking to have another policy meeting because the board is transitioning the committee of the whole. So one thing that I would like the committee members to watch for their emails is a doodle from Katie Heights because instead of our November scheduled meeting, that is now a committee of the whole meeting. So that's my long way of saying is that we would love to have a policy committee meeting prior to the next board meeting so we could continue to work on the two items, the calendar and the telehealth policy.
All right, thank you, Gina. All right, moving on to E, information items. So I will turn those over to Dr. Bergstrom.
Thank you. And this evening we will be working, we had our committee of the whole to talk about some of the bigger components of our visioning process, which are addressing some long-term sustainability plans for multiple components of the district. And then after this board meeting, we'll be working or listening to our 4K6 principals speak about school goals, which are related to or which are in service of our portrait of a graduate, the district or the Board of Education strategic priorities, and the district goals and action plans. So we'll be seeing a little bit of that after this meeting. Consequently, I'm going to move forward through this and get ourselves to the superintendent's report, because the biggest part of our teaching and learning presentation will be in the work session following this. And I'm so pleased as punch, to be able to congratulate Shelby Deegan, our school counselor at Forest Edge Elementary. She just recently received the 2024 Rising Star Award from the Wisconsin School Counselor Association. And this award recognizes school counselors who are new to the field. So we're very happy for Shelby. We feel so honored that she has chosen to spend her career with us, and she is an Oregon graduate. Also, such a big congratulations to high school PE teacher Mark Dierks. He's received the Rockwell Award for Outstanding Cooperating Teacher from the UW-Madison School of Education Department. He was selected as a recipient through this process, and it recognizes excellent teachers who have chosen to pass on their expertise by providing professional experiences for UW-Madison student teachers. So the selection committee bases its decision on nominations by cooperating teachers' commitment to mentoring future teachers through a process of effective guidance, feedback, opportunities for reflection, as well as exemplary teaching ability by establishing an environment that instills a desire for students to learn, bring enthusiasm to the classroom, and putting into practice quality and successful teaching techniques, methods, and goals. So congratulations, Mark, and he will be honored at an awards ceremony in November. And I don't know how many of you are aware, but we just had the Great Apple Crunch. So earlier this month, we celebrated the National School Lunch Week along with the Great Apple Crunch. And you can see the joy and excitement that our students get from crunching on a locally grown apple. You can also see our school nutrition director, Sarah Tomaszewicz, getting into the spirit of things by dressing as an apple herself. We also have a big congratulations to our OMS band students. On the left, you see these OMS students recently participated in the Mead Witter School of Music at UW-Madison Single Reed Day. This learning opportunity was for the clarinet and saxophone players of all types. Students played in ensembles and learned from one another and master clarinet and saxophone musicians. And then on the right, you can see the students who auditioned and were selected to be a part of the 2024 Sun Prairie Honors Band for middle school students. They'll be learning with other area middle school musicians as well as their guest clinician for the day, Chris Gleason. The Honors Band takes place on Saturday, November 11th with a performance at 6 p.m. at Cardinal Heights Middle School in Sun Prairie. So congratulations to our Oregon students who are part of that. And then a long tradition in, service of our value of strong family and community partnerships. We are proud to offer this opportunity for our students to engage in a service project while performing a service for our community. So as you can see, our 8th grade students at Oregon Middle School are preparing for their annual community service raking project and are looking forward to looking for lawns to rake. So residents who live within a safe walking distance of OMS can submit a raking request. There is a form on the OSD social media page. We're also in contact with the Oregon Area Senior Center in this project in hopes of reaching community members who may not be on social media. And so that's why we're reaching out to the Senior Center. If anyone listening knows of someone who would benefit, they can look up for the social media post on Facebook or contact the OMS main office for assistance. They're asking for people to sign up by this Wednesday, October 25th. And yes, we actually have a group called Silence of the Hams, and it's our Oregon High School improv group. And they're the opening act, or they were the opening act for the Guys on Ice this weekend. And that was a fantastic performance. So imagine I can't even imagine this. Try to imagine being given a prompt that you have never seen before and having to come up with something clever on the spot in front of an auditorium full of people. This takes courage, and I am so impressed by these high school students. Guys on Ice is the first of 4 shows at the Spotlight Headliner Series at our OHS Performing Arts Center. And so a special thanks to Nate Mendel for bringing this great series to Oregon. If any of you have attended them, they're always a good time. And for incorporating meaningful student learning experiences as a part of that. So if you want to learn more about it, go to OregonPerformingArtsCenter.com. And then we have our School to Career program. We want to say congratulations to Oregon High School student Cheyenne Johnson, who was recently selected as the Spotlight Youth Apprentice Student of the Month by the Dane County School Consortium. Cheyenne is doing an apprenticeship at Country View Equine Clinic. Her favorite job experience has been helping support and hold a horse for a vet who was performing a bilateral enucleation to save the horse from pain. So, nice job, Cheyenne. And of course, congratulations to fall student athletes. They recently wrapped up their fall sports seasons. As our students spoke about previously, swimming is still going and will be competing in their conference meet this weekend. Members from our golf team and tennis team competed in the state level tournaments. It's been a season filled with a lot of great experiences and memories. And so, speaking of fall athletics, think about homecoming, and the festivities were enjoyed by all. I know the parade and the weather was a disappointment, but our schools really turned lemons into lemonade and had a great time with the students. We had parades in our elementary schools. I did attend the high school pep assembly, and it was pretty spectacular. As a matter of fact, when I later interviewed some of our German exchange students, they said it felt like a movie. Like something they really had never experienced before. And here are some examples of that, as well as the great pictures that Charlotte and Olivia shared earlier. It really showcased school spirit, school pride. And the evening ended with a win against Sun Prairie, which was also, despite the drizzle, was a really nice evening. And then Saturday night was actually a night in New York. The homecoming dance was a fantastic event. The theme was a night in New York, and it didn't disappoint. From the pre-event photos to the decorations to the music and dancing, it was a great night. And for 25 very special visitors, they've had a pretty great week, I hope. And homecoming was incredibly special to them because this isn't something that they experience in Germany. They experience many wonderful things, but homecoming week is not one of them. And so I think they were really delighted. I was really the word I would use when they speak about it, delighted with that experience. And we are delighted to have them here. We have 25 students and their teachers coming from Langen, Germany for 3 weeks. And there's been a lot of excitement about this, from our students to them to all the adults who are getting to know these fantastic students and their chaperones. And then in June, our high school students will travel to their hometown in Germany for the second half of the exchange. And that is going to be a great experience for our students too. And when I asked the German students what they think our high school students would enjoy most, they said, school's done by 1 o'clock. You have a lot more time to hang out. And I thought that was a funny one, and I think our students probably will enjoy a little bit of free time. So as we close this evening, I want to leave you with the information on how you can hear directly from our exchange students. And yes, indeed, this is the podcast that's coming up. They were a lot of fun to talk to, and their English is incredibly impressive. Incredibly so. And they said they feel like they're getting better every day because of the practice that they're getting with this experience here. But they were absolutely delightful. They found the American experience to be really interesting. And it's the first time in a long time they've been here during homecoming. As a matter of fact, it might be the first time ever that they've been here during homecoming. So they found that to be a quintessential American experience and really enjoyed it. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's been wonderful to see with the German exchange students and even the village in terms of the German flags around town. I think that's really cool as well. So I think it's also been really fun to have you guys here at our board meeting. So thank you for being here. And I saw you kind of laughing. Sometimes the superintendent report is a trip down memory lane in terms of the raking project when you were in 8th grade, right? You remember that? All right, so moving on to closing. Future agenda, our next meeting is on November 13th. And so we will have some action items at that meeting. But if you have anything else that you have questions about with that meeting, please let me know. And then we will move to checkout. So I'll go around the room and see if anyone has anything for checkout. Mary.
Sure. So I know, Heather, you mentioned the abysmal state of funding from the state for special ed and their special ed program, and that's across the state. And while the per student funding from the state was not zero this year, which is a huge improvement over the last 2 years, it would be great to have a state legislature that supports our students. And so I just wanted to say, once again, thank you to our community for funding our students and our community for passing the referendum last year.
Heather, anything? Troy? Leslie? Caleb?
I thought I would just add, and I know Anna has an exchange student. We have an exchange student staying with us, and I thought it was rather enjoyable to see. I think it was the 3rd or 4th day they were here that the whole homecoming thing happened. So it was kind of like taking kids and throwing them into the deep end of the pool and like America by shock. So that's been kind of fun. And it's been great having Yannick staying with us. The only other thing I wanted to say is that this is my first year on the board, and this is my first time getting exposed to the ins and out of the budgetary process. And I was trying to think of like a metaphor to describe the budget, and I don't really have a good one. I came up with like juggling chainsaws or something. I don't know. But I just wanted to kind of speak and say that I really appreciate the thoughtfulness with which the board and the administration worked on the budget and trying to figure out how best to be stewards for the money and the investment that, we've already noted the community has made in the schools, and also trying to think, be forward thinking about the impact of what all of this may have, not just this year, but on coming years in terms of property taxes and those kinds of things, and working together to do all that we can to make sure we're doing the best that we can. So it's been interesting for me to see that the first time.
Thank you. Anna, anything?
Yeah, just two things, because we are hosting 2 German exchange students, and every single day we ask, so tell us something else that's different between how school is in Oregon and how school is in Germany. And 2 of the things that our students have expressed to us so far is, and it just made me so proud. The first one was that they love the connection they see between students and teachers. They said it's just a totally different relationship that they see in the high school between how students and teachers interact. And I just thought, wow, that's like one of the number one things we talk about is important in education, is the connection between our teachers and the students. So that was just so cool to have kids who have been in our schools 2 days pick up on that and see that and talk about it. So that was so cool. Secondly, they said that school lunch here is so much better than the school lunch in Germany. So I just thought that was very interesting. They said the portions are, it's a larger amount of food, but also just very good tasting food. So my students initially were like, oh, we better bring a lunch from home. We don't know what to expect for school lunch. And now they're like, yeah, I'm going to take the school lunch. I'm like, okay, great. So anyway, just wanted to share those.
That's great. Thanks, Anna. Okay, that concludes our regular board meeting. So the board is now going to move into a work session. So we will have that work session, then we'll do adjournment. So this is the end of the regular school board meeting. And so we'll take a couple minute recess, and then we'll come back and go into our work session.